Hello friends, welcome back to GM Philosophy in the Morning. I'm the GM Philosopher. Today I want to talk about managing different player types. This was posted in the GM Philosophy Discord, which you can join, link is in the description. But Dirty Socks posted a poll the other day and basically asked GMs a lot of questions. What are the biggest challenges you face running games? And this one came out as the #1 challenge, managing different player types. And I just wanted to talk about this for a minute. So the first thing to understand is that I kind of agree with this. And actually in that poll, I would probably call this the most challenging thing also. Managing different player types is very challenging. There's a lot of energy that goes into it. It is not easy to stay on top of how everyone games differently and then trying to meet all of those players, like basically where they're coming from. You might have a quiet player over here, you might have a min-maxer over here, you might have a very, almost spotlight hoggy player over here. Not that there's anything wrong with those players, I love those types of players. You might have someone who's really into deep role play over here, and then over here you may have someone who doesn't even like role play, they want to get into combat. So there's a lot of different player styles. And in fact, drop me a comment. Let me know how many different player styles you think there are. I'd be very interested to hear about that, from you guys. See what you think about different types of player archetypes and whatnot. But here's my 2 cents on the matter. I think that, first of all, in the past, I have been a little bit accused of basically giving a lot of tips, giving a lot of advice, basically telling game masters, hey, you can do this to make your games better. You should try to do all these different things and make the game awesome for your player characters, and it's kind of on you to do it. I think a lot of people sometimes think that when I'm giving these deep tips or deeper pieces of advice or diving deep into things, I think that they think I'm saying that, basically game masters are completely responsible for giving their players a fun time. But I don't think that's true at all, and I want to kind of dispel that myth because I think this is important for discussing this. I'm going to describe why I think it's important next, but I want to dispel this. I don't think this. I think players have a great deal of responsibility and ability to make the game fun for themselves. And I think that if they do not choose to take the initiative to make the game fun for themselves, a game master is not going to be able to compensate for that. And part of that is vetting players and finding the right players, okay? So there's an element to where players are responsible for their own fun, their own engagement. All I want to do is talk to game masters about, well, the goal of this channel is empowering game masters to run better games. What goal, what part does a game master have in that goal? It is this. I give some tips in all of my videos. My hope is that game masters will watch my videos, learn a couple little things they might be able to do differently, and then put those things into their next session, maybe make their session better. That's the whole thing. I'm not trying to say game masters are 100% responsible for all of the fun that occurs at the table. The game master can only control a certain aspect of the game, right? They can control the world around the player characters, but actually it's the player characters who drive the narrative, who lead the narrative. And if you've got great players who take this very seriously, this is going to make for a great game. If you have players who are completely relying on you to do everything, if they're relying on you completely to engage them, and they're not going to go create their own adventures in your world, that is going to be a problem that you cannot necessarily solve, okay? So, and that leads me to this. I think that managing different player styles really involves, and you might be surprised to hear me say this, but this is the truth. I think this mostly involves putting effort into every single player, every single session, maybe once or twice, to try to bring them out and engage with them in a way that you think matches well with their player style. But beyond that, just learning to be okay letting them game in their own styles, letting them push the narrative. If we're letting our 5 players or 6 players or 4 players drive their own narrative, and then we're just filling in the pixels around them, right? And then presenting them with situations, presenting them with unique NPCs, presenting them with moral quandary, mystery, sometimes a challenge, and we're letting them push the narrative. Does it really matter if they have different play styles? This is almost a thing that I think some game masters trip themselves up with. I think that they think a little too deeply about this, maybe deeper than they need to. I would much rather ask, hey, what's your plan for each individual player character at your table? for you to be proactive as a game master and reaching out to each one of those players with a thing, right? For one player, it might be, here's this thing from your background. For this other player, it might be, I can tell you're really into combat. Maybe someone challenges them to a quick duel or something. For another player, it's like they're really into animals. It's like you get approached by a stray dog, right? So it's just little things that we do to engage them. But this is kind of like, not how we push the narrative. This is just, again, filling in the pixels. We want the player characters to push the narrative. And so when you have players with different styles, there's an element of trusting them to do their thing. And I want to say one more thing about this, but before I move on to that last thing, I want to double down on this for a minute. Trusting the quiet player to be kind of quiet. There's nothing wrong with that. Trusting that that's how they want to experience the game, not feeling like you have to drag them out of that, could be a powerful way to match their playstyle. Not expecting the combat-oriented player to do deep roleplay. Maybe they don't want to do deep roleplay. That's totally fine. We should let ourselves off the hook for that. If you can get them to roleplay just a little bit more, just a little bit, I mean a little bit, like 4 sentences, that's plenty enough of engagement, drawing them in, right? We don't want to be ignoring any players, but we should feel free to let our players game in their own unique style and push the narrative the way that they want to. And I'm going to move on to my final piece of advice here. It's also true that different player styles, when you describe that problem to yourself or you think about that problem, that may lead you to think, well, I'm afraid that maybe my style isn't working with one or more of these players. I also advocate for game masters to be okay with that and to learn to say it's okay if not everyone likes my game. It's even okay if 1 or 2 players quit. This actually is not a setback. Sometimes it just doesn't work out. I've been running games for over 20 years, and in almost every campaign I've run, there's always a chance, and this has happened in many of them, there's always a chance that you're going to have one player who just doesn't jive with you. You just have a hard time catching a rhythm with that player. A lot of times that player ends up quitting. That's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. It doesn't mean you're a failure, because if most of your players are showing up every week and they're excited to play and they want to play with you and they keep coming back, barring, life circumstances and stuff, then you're running a successful game. If you're consistently having all of your players drop out relatively early and you can't get anything going, that might be a sign that you do need to learn a little bit more about the craft of running games. But you know what I'm saying? That's kind of the line between success and failure. If you can run games where your players are pretty much showing up and they're excited, they keep wanting to play every week, odds are good you're running a very successful game and you are connecting with your players where they need you to. But just trusting them to drive the narrative and create their own fun sometimes is the answer. And I think that's the answer to this question. So great poll, Dirty Socks. Thank you so much for bringing this into the forefront. Drop a comment. Let me know what you think. I'm the GM Philosopher. I'll see you awesome people on the next one.